public health experts say we'll have to get used to a new reality that our lives will be disrupted unless and until there is a vaccine for COVID-19. A huge effort is underway. At least 115 teams of researchers in at least 21 countries are working on a vaccine. World leaders have pledged almost $8 billion on a global effort. And today, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Canada would contribute $850 million to it. That includes money already allocated to Canadian researchers working on treatments and a vaccine.
Even once we find a vaccine, whether it's in Canada or elsewhere around the world, we will share that vaccine in its formula. But production of that vaccine will be extremely important right around the world as well. It cannot just be the wealthiest countries producing that vaccine.
Research is being fast-tracked and several human clinical trials are underway. There's hope one could be available within 12 to 18 months, but some researchers say that's too ambitious for a vaccine, that a more reasonable time frame could be about 4 years. The U.S. is not taking part in that global effort. An internal U.S. government document projects there could be a surge in deaths in the U.S. by the end of May, as many as 3,000 deaths a day and up to 200,000 new cases each day. As Jackson Proskow reports, despite that, a number of American states are going ahead and relaxing restrictions.
We are joined now by President Donald Trump.
Facing the highest number of cases and deaths in the world, President Donald Trump revised his projection for the toll COVID-19 will take on the U.S.
We're going to lose anywhere from 75, 80 to 100,000 people. That's a horrible thing. We shouldn't lose one person over this.
For weeks, Trump has touted a figure of 60,000 deaths. His updated numbers may still be too low. The New York Times obtained a pessimistic internal U.S. government report. It projects the number of U.S. deaths will climb from an average of 1,700 per day to 3,000 per day by June 1st. The number of new cases will rise from 25,000 per day to 200,000 per day.
We are not decreasing out of this first wave. So for me, I worry that we're not going to really ever be out of this first wave and that we'll continue to go through a plateau with some decreases here and there and some spikes.
As New York and New Jersey see improvement, there are more new cases in new places. Dallas reported its biggest single-day jump 2 days after Texas began reopening.
I have not seen a lot of use of masks, and there are certain areas and certain times of day and certain places where it doesn't seem like social distancing is even a thing.
At least 35 states have loosened restrictions, despite none meeting White House guidelines of 2 weeks of improvement. Small reopening protests continue across the country, and there's open defiance of stay-at-home orders.
This is my business, and I have the right to keep it open.
With no domestic travel restrictions in effect in the U.S., experts warn that as cases grow in recently reopened states, they can easily spread, seeding the virus at a time when the country still doesn't have the capacity to fully test for it. Donna?
Jackson Proskow in Washington, thanks. In Italy, people got their first taste of life after lockdown in nearly 8 weeks, going outside to exercise and finally reuniting with family. Italy has had more than 200,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and at least 29,000 people have died from it, though many deaths may not have been recorded. The country's healthcare system was so overwhelmed in early March, the Prime Minister ordered the entire country into lockdown. Life has not returned to normal, but as Crystal Goomansingh reports, little changes are lifting spirits.
An embrace months in the making. Italian families are reuniting as the country enters a new phase of living with the pandemic. I can't even speak of how excited I am. Too excited, says this 72-year-old grandfather. We've only seen her with video calls for 2 months, but it was not the same. Families are allowed to see one another again, but they can't have big gatherings, and it's only family. Friends will have to wait. People can now travel between communities and enjoy the outdoors.
Hi, so nice to see you.
Taylor Lay is from British Columbia, but has been in the Lombardy region studying. She went out for a run for the first time in 72 days.
I actually cried tears of joy. I was just so happy. I love running. I don't care that there's a mask, and it's just, it really gives you a lens of gratitude like you've never had before.
In early March, Italy became the epicenter of the outbreak in Europe. To protect lives, the economy was sacrificed. Now, about 4 million people are back to work. I hope people will have common sense and understand that even if they can move around, they still have to be cautious, said this woman. The reopening is being staggered out of fear of a second wave of infections. Schools, cinemas, and most stores remain closed. Life won't get back to normal anytime soon, but at least there's a little more joy. Crystal Goomansingh, Global News, London.
The new series that goes inside the COVID-19 pandemic, from the front lines to the everyday heroes helping us cope with the unprecedented change. Coronavirus, the new reality. A Global News special, Sundays at 7 on Global.